great-grandparents were really big into the Catholic Church, and my dad's side was the Baptist. And as their faith trickled down, it was more weaponized. And again, heaven, hell, God, all of that. But there was, you got to do this, you got to be this way. My story is between city life with my mom and my stepdad, and country life in Lake Charles with my dad and stepmom. My parents separated when I was 6 months old. If it hadn't been for my stepdad and his gentle hand in things, and on my dad's side, my aunt, I say my story is a story of in-laws and outlaws, because it was for the people that weren't truly blood related to me that shaped my life. My stepdad was in the Navy, so we did travel a lot. And I saw God's creation and the life and everything from the back seat of an Oldsmobile. And we traveled cross country from California to New York and then back. I'd spend summers and alternating holidays in Lake Charles. Again, to escape things, I would volunteer. Hey, can I go hang out with Aunt Chris and Uncle Billy? They lived further out in the country and had the ducks and the rabbits, and my cousin Katrina was young, and her and I grew up like sisters. She's the one that brought me to church. So every time I was with them, I would go to church and absorb as much as I could. And it was sporadic. It may have been less than 6, 7 times a year, depending on the weekends and the way they fell when I was there. But I found a peace in it, and that yes, there was the structure, but it didn't have to be with violence. That yes, if you love yourself enough, you will hold yourself to these standards. And it didn't have to be weaponized. I was 13. I got baptized. By that time, I'd had, I guess, enough of church everywhere. And that was another thing. When I would spend time with my other family members, I have an uncle that married into the family, and they also had 2 younger daughters, but they were Catholic. So when I would stay with them in the summer, I would go to Catholic church. And then again, it was Church of Christ when I was with my aunt. Before moving, I moved to Baton Rouge when I was 14. And before moving here, I'd say I wasn't dedicated, or it was something I viewed that was only coming around every now and again. It wasn't something I could count on with consistency. The first friend I made was Jennifer. I went into class and sat next to her and I became best friends. So her family would pick me up on Sundays and Wednesdays. And that was the first time I really got consistency with it and really prayed, read, and got into the Bible. Along the way, there was a lot of ups and downs. I've struggled with my health a lot. And even through that, I knew I could push through. I knew there was a reason, a why. There was no giving up. I found out that my husband had had an affair. And I had to leave. And it shattered me because I thought he wasn't meant of God. And I got mad for a long time about that. But I had to be as strong as I could. I ended up getting the 2 girls. And I guess that's where my comeback to faith starts, is when she was 14. We had moved to Lake Charles after the 16 flood and had started a life over there. And they were asking, what about church? You know, by that time we had left because when they found out I was divorced, a lot of the older ladies were appalled that I didn't stay, that I had not lost my faith, but lost the bigger picture. And I didn't feel like I was, because I had prayed a lot, and my girls needed to see somebody that was strong. And then it got around further, and I had lost my position in church. Was teaching a Sunday school class and doing meal services and things. Well, I was no longer married, and so I couldn't hold those positions anymore. And that is when I walked away. The 16 flood happened, and we left. We moved to Lake Charles. My stepdad that lived here in Baton Rouge had fallen and broke his knee or messed his knee up, and Cheyenne spent the summer with them while I was still working in Lake Charles. By the end of 2019, I had stepped down off a ladder and messed my foot up. So I had to resign due to medical reasons because my migraines had gotten worse. My hands and the trembling in my fingers had gotten worse where I couldn't even do my job. So that's when me and Cheyenne moved back to Baton Rouge. And the 2020 shutdown, lockdown happened. And me, her, and my dad became happy little hermits. But that is when she started coming to church with Hope and Gracie. That is when she found this family here. And I am so thankful she did. I was still struggling in my own healing process, in my own journey. She had known why I had stepped away from the church, not God. But she never stopped asking for me to come. So every time she would read or sing, I was here. I made sure that I could physically make it here and sit and watch her. Y'all had started the story, and she says it's a lot like our family reunions. Because again, my family is everything behind closed doors, but you come together. My uncles, or actually, I'm sorry, my grandmother's brothers were in a band. And they, I guess, sung at church or whatever. Again, we all knew the hymns. So again, they would sit there and just play and strum, and there would be different things going on. A lot of the kids just crashed out, pillows and blankets, and listening to the old people tell stories. And that's when Cheyenne said that it was more one-on-one and more relaxed, and it wasn't the structure. That is where we've kind of come full circle. Easter of 24, we had lost a few people in my family again. My grandmother was really sick, and I was the one, when I'd caregive for her, I would take her to church. And toward the end, they would have people come to take care of the shut-ins and things. It was wonderful, beautiful. And then seeing the story and people talking, I was still one not to talk at church or have a voice at all about much. But I was the one that absorbed, and I'd sit back and take it all in. That started an eye-opening awakening. Having all of these images and pictures that I was doing the right thing. Everything is for a reason. And I do believe it was to bring me here. Even in the darkest hours, you should feel alone, as long as God is at the center of it. And again, between all the natural disasters and all the hate that's in the world, they're fleeting moments, and not to get defined by the moments, that there's always a bigger picture. And I've always been looking for my bigger picture and hope that it will all make sense. And that's what this Easter, this Lent, actually, I guess from Cheyenne's testimony, I started fasting and praying, intermittent fasting and praying, and blocking out a lot of the noise. That is when I became good at turning inwards to my family, what I could control, my bubble, my brothers, my parents, my kids, and focusing on that and having faith and hope and love, you can't get through anything and everything. I'm excited about this new chapter of my life. I know it's here. Even on days that I just kind of feel not myself and kind of struggling, I come sit here. And just being here, it refocused me, it recenters me. I would have never been up here had it not been for the safety that was here and the comfort. Going forward, I just want to spread as much peace and love and helping people let go to find their own peace, not for anybody else, but for themselves. And there's so many things here and programs and Bible studies that I am going to get started in, because I do feel 100% church, with this church, these people is where I'm needed.